Welcome back to Tuesday Tips to Two, special edition covering the mask mandates here in Texas, although it does have national implications. The big topic came to a head as such. The governor issued earlier in the pandemic an executive order that says local officials may not require masks to be worn on public grounds. This issue wasn't entirely challenged up until the past few weeks, right as schools were to be reopening. A lot of ISDs stated, hey, we're going to require kids, parents, and teachers to all wear masks here. So it was obvious that this fight was going to come to a head as the governor was staying by his position to say, look, anyone may choose to wear masks and parents may instruct their children to wear masks, but the authorities may not require it. Not to be beat to the punch or to the press, the local county judge in Dallas, Texas, and parentheses here, in Texas, rather than calling the chief executive of a county, I don't know, chief executive or whatever, we call him judge. So this guy, Clay Jenkins, a rather political figure, he jumped into the fray quick and early. It happened in a commissioner's court, the county commissioner's court, where they're having a meeting. This is all the elected officials of the county all sitting there. And one particular member said, I don't want to wear this mask. It was a fight between him and the judge, Jenkins over there, with Judge Jenkins saying, I require it at this meeting, get out. So Judge Jenkins apparently, I think, he filed a lawsuit and requested a TRO in a Dallas court. And what the lawsuit was, it wasn't between him and the commissioner really, it was entirely about the governor. The restraining order that the judge requested was such that the governor, let's call him Gov, G-U-V, of all of Texas, himself is restrained from enacting this prohibition. Quick little side note, TRO, temporary restraining order, it's a tool that courts have in order to protect the status quo, to restrain someone from doing something or force someone to do something in the interim. And it's allowed on an emergency basis, even before a defendant is served and appears as party in a lawsuit. So here the governor didn't even appear. The governor got wind of this, obviously, and immediately filed for mandamus, which is this fast-track, super hardcore type of appeal that allows for an immediate result from an upper appellate court. So this went up to the Dallas Court of Appeals, where those judges, all Democrats, sided with the Democrat Judge Clay Jenkins against the Republican governor by saying, yes, Governor Clay Jenkins was in his authority to issue this mask mandate, and the governor is restrained from stopping it, or more so that the lower court wasn't wrong to issue this TRO. The governor immediately appealed it up to the Texas Supreme Court, all Republicans, and the governor's Republican. I don't wish to wade too much into the politics of this or be too cynical to say this side sided with him because of this party as opposed to that party. Instead, I'm going to focus us entirely upon the law. Here was the argument. The governor says, look, in 1975, the legislature passed the 1975 Texas Disaster Act, which empowers the governor as the commander-in-chief of the entire state's response to a disaster. It also granted a significant amount of power to local state officials to help out with the disaster relief. Often, this works in harmony. Think about the hurricane that impacts Harris County, Houston, where the governor has ultimate powers, but then he's working in unison with the local county officials upon the relief itself. Here we have this long-lasting disaster, the pandemic, and it's playing out in multiple ways, and obviously there's a ton of disagreements here. So the local judge argues, hey, I'm also empowered under this law, and my empowerment is such where it says that the local authority is permitted to control the ingress and egress out of a disaster area. And he was kind of reading that broadly to say that permits me to stop people that could be infected from coming in and out of a disaster area, and thus also public buildings. Aha, the governor says, that might be correct, but the law also made you an agent for the state's disaster relief. meaning that in a tie-breaking situation, the governor will always win because the county judge is an agent for the governor or for the overall disaster relief. And critically, the governor argued that this legislation, the Texas Disaster Act, permits the governor to issue executive orders to promulgate, to help out, to further the state's response to the disaster. Now, this is really interesting because here you have a Republican more on the libertarian side arguing for a very broad, very robust amount of executive power, which usually it's more the Democrats on the liberal side that are in favor of, while here the Democrats are saying, no, trust us, local government, to make these decisions, not the governor himself. And critically, the judge was saying to some degree, and this was interesting where he was kind of hedging his bets to say, look, I'm not necessarily arguing against the right to issue these executive orders, but I, the judge, am helping mitigate this disaster by stopping the spread of this pandemic by forcing people to wear masks. The governor's order, though, GA-38, doesn't just prohibit individual state officials from requiring masks on public lands, it also prohibits them from issuing contradictory orders to that of the governor. So the governor says, it is what it is. I have the power here. I have the tiebreaker. The lower court that ruled in favor of the judge says, sure, but the harm outweighs the benefit. So we're siding with the judge. Aha, the Supreme Court says the legislator empowered the governor in these disasters to make quick snap decisions because that's what's required in a disaster. It did not empower courts to make policy decisions, meaning I like this decision over that decision, so I'm going to go with this one as opposed to that one for all these various reasons. Which leads to the next point. This entire legal argument was entirely upon legal authority, rather than citing the statistics of whether or not the mask mandate is even effective. Or if it's effective under these circumstances with these types of people as opposed to those and those types of people. It was just talking about authority. And that there is the ticket to how our constitutional order works. There's always going to be disagreement. There's always going to be disagreement over life and death decisions. That's the basis of politics. You make decisions based on limited information, finite resources. Someone's going to be the winner, someone's going to be the loser here. And it's not necessarily always the loser's going to be those that are infected. It could be other issues. The governor was arguing, I don't just consider just the unabated one-track mind of stopping the spread of the pandemic. I have other things to consider, such as constitutional freedoms, economic freedoms, other health goals, etc. But those topics weren't discussed in detail. It was just to say broadly, the governor is weighing a lot, not just one single issue. That's a whole mouthful to discuss this issue. I have reserved all of my own personal opinions over the efficacy of the mask mandate, but you didn't tune in to hear me talking about that. Up until next time, stay healthy, stay calm, stay sane, stop yelling at your neighbors. Be well.